Joining me from Watertown, Massachusetts, Dr. Jill Stein. She joins the race advocating for what she calls a Green New Deal. She's a physician by training, and she led the Green Party's national ticket in 2012. Doctor, what do you make of, with the success, the rating success, the polling success of Donald Trump? What does that say about the state of American politics today?
Well, I don't think we need to make too much of it. Early leads in the polls usually don't mean a whole lot. But I think what Donald Trump is doing is inexcusable, unjustified. He is exercising demagoguery. He is viciously attacking our immigrant community, and it should be thoroughly repudiated. I think he's looking for a cheap vote. He's looking for attention. But what he's doing, which is really race baiting, has consequences. And in the aftermath of what just happened, the massacre in Charleston, South Carolina, this shouldn't be taken lightly. That kind of hate speech really has consequences. And, you know, he's doing a terrible disservice and making a public danger, actually, of himself. We should be standing up for our immigrant community.
Doctor, you got 470,000 votes in 2012. You know, looking at the obvious, the Green Party candidate, however effective, has very little, if any, chance. Why are you running again?
You know, I think you could say the average American voter has very little chance taking that approach. If you look at what polls show, about 25% of people, of voters, identify as Republicans, 31% identify as Democrats. This is really a small portion of the electorate. And actually, about 60% are calling for an independent third party because the Democrats and Republicans do not represent ordinary people. And we know that from the crisis that we're in, the crisis of jobs, with 75% of the jobs created now being low-wage, part-time, temporary, insecure. 40 million young people, millennials, who are in debt, in college debt, without a real opportunity to repay that debt because the good jobs aren't there to do that. 1 out of 3 African Americans who are held hostage by the prison industrial complex and the prison state. So to surrender to the control by the corporate Wall Street sold-out political parties is to say that this is okay. And let me add to that, the latest climate news study just came out yesterday, published by the leading climate scientist, Jim Hansen, saying that within 50 years, we're going to see at least 10 feet of sea level rise. Climate change is accelerating. We don't have a lot of time to turn this around. The two parties have been essentially identical in their fundamental policies, their trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, NAFTA on steroids. It will continue to export our jobs and put downward pressure on wages. Their climate policies, Obamacare and Romneycare. I come from the state of Romneycare. They're essentially the same, and they're doing a terrible disservice to the American people and the American economy. We can fix this, but we need to get outside of the system.
What, Jill, is the Green New Deal?
Well, the Green New Deal is a great way, Larry, that we can actually fix this, and it's not rocket science. It is an emergency program to put America back to work. It will create 20 million jobs, living wage jobs, that transition us to a green economy and 100% clean renewable energy. So it will revive the economy at the same time that it turns the tide on climate change, which is becoming a catastrophic problem. The Democrats and Republicans have created this mess and proven themselves incapable of fixing it. The Green New Deal will actually fix it and will begin to do that immediately as an emergency program. And as I say, it builds on the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression. It's not rocket science how to do this.
It's government-created work?
Well, put it this way. We've had big stimulus packages right now. We have an ongoing stimulus package, for example, to the prison industry and to the war industry and the defense industry, the weapons industry. We need to shift those subsidies. And also, likewise, we have a huge subsidy to the finance industry. We just bailed them out to the tune of $14 trillion. We can start putting our dollars where they count, supporting small businesses, supporting worker-based, community-based cooperatives, and providing government jobs where jobs are not otherwise available. So we can do this through creating a diverse, just, and green economy, which our lives literally depend on.
Isn't there a Democratic candidate of note who's saying pretty much everything you're saying, Bernie Sanders?
We have many things in common. It's very true. What's different is that I'm running in a party that actually supports that, and he's running in a party that will, at the end of the day, and he's already said that he will support and endorse and work for whatever corporate Democrat wins in this corporate-controlled process. He is one in a long line of principled rebels inside the Democratic Party. But we saw what happens when you actually become a threat. The party will mercilessly attack you and destroy you, as it did to Dennis Kucinich, as it did to the campaign of Jesse Jackson. So we know where this is going to go. It will bring up good issues, and that's great. But at the end of the day, that campaign will be absorbed by a party which is hostile to these issues, and it will then lend support for likely Hillary Clinton, who continues the war on everyday people, the war on our climate, the expansion of the fracking industry, the war on our public schools, the support for privatization. These are not policies that help the American people, which is why we need to build, not just in one campaign, but we need to build an independent base that will continue to build from one campaign to the next. In this race, we are far stronger than we were before. And one way or the other, whether we win the office or we simply win the day by building the political resistance to a very corrupt system, this is what the American people are clamoring for.
We did a historic debate 4 years ago in Chicago. You were included in that debate with the minority party candidates, as they were called. You were kept off the other debates. We might do that again. But you filed a lawsuit to get on the major debates. How's that going?
It's going well. It's going well. And it has been filed. It is a well-funded and supported lawsuit. We have enormous public support. A petition was filed, actually, with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, asking to follow the law, because they're actually violating the law by allowing the debates to be rigged for just two political parties. This is a violation of the law. And that petition had thousands of signers and one opponent. One opponent. It's thousands to one here. And that one opponent was actually the FEC itself. Or it might have been the Commission on Presidential Debates. But that's it. The public is demanding a real debate that lifts up more voices and more choices and creates a real democracy.
You talk about the politics of fear, Dr. Stein. What do you mean?
Well, we're told, Larry, we're told that we are powerless and that we, the everyday people who basically support the right to a job, living wages, health care as a human right, education through college as a human right, these downsizing our military, spending our dollars, creating true security here at home. This is what the public supports. And, we're told we don't count and we should be afraid of standing up on those values. Well, this politics of fear has basically delivered everything we were afraid of. You're told you can't vote your values, you got to vote your fears because you might get the candidate you like least who might expand the war, who might attack our civil liberties, who might deport millions of immigrants, who might go after the press and our freedoms of the press and our freedoms to protest, who might be locking up millions of people, and many of them African Americans. That's exactly what we've gotten by not standing up. We need to stand up and insist on the democracy we deserve. Consider Richard Nixon, a very repressive and regressive president. Under the Nixon administration, we achieved women's right to choose by standing up in a way that the Supreme Court heard because the public was insisting. We achieved the Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. We mobilized against the war in Vietnam and ended that war. We have to be the drivers in our democracy. We should not be intimidated into thinking we are powerless. We are not powerless. We actually have the numbers to win this, and we actually have the solutions that can actually fix these crises.
What keeps you going, Jill? It must be frustrating.
Actually, to the contrary, Larry, I was very frustrated. You know, right now I say I'm practicing political medicine. I used to practice clinical medicine, and I sort of worked my way up the food chain to political medicine because it was clear that the things that are literally killing us are really enabled by this sold-out corrupt political system, that ultimately we've got to fix the mother of all illnesses, which is our political system. And once I was tricked into running for office. The first time I ran, which was in 2002, I ran against Mitt Romney for governor in Massachusetts. And we fought our way into a televised debate. And inside that debate TV studio, the ideas I put forward, like here, went over like lead balloons. But when we walked out of the debate, I was mobbed by the press, who told me that I had won the debate on the instant online viewer poll. And at that point, I realized, Larry, we've already won in the court of public opinion. We haven't won in this very oppressive political system that enables the teeny tiny 0.1% to basically put a stranglehold around our necks. We need to break that stranglehold, take our democracy back. The minute we get to the microphone, we basically win the day. That's not such a hard battle to fight. Our lives depend on it. The clock is ticking on climate, on the next economic meltdown, on the fascist state and the massive prison system that's growing, this profitized prison system. The clock is ticking on all these things. They're not getting better. Even under a Democratic president who had 2 houses of Congress, Wall Street was ruling the day when the Democrats were running the show. So we really need to learn the lesson here and stand up and reject this politics of fear and go forward with a politics of courage.
Has Barack Obama been a disappointment to you?
I was looking very closely at his policies and what he was saying. So it was clear to me that there was an awful lot of wiggle room in the promises he was making. And if you looked at where his money was coming from, it was clear who he was accountable to, that, you know, he was being funded by big finance, above all, by the big health insurance companies, by big oil, by fracking, and that's who's won the day. You know, they are making out like bandits. Now he's changed his tune a little bit and he's talking about everyday people, but this is conveniently very late in the cycle. It's laying the groundwork for the next election. He's trying to do his part, I think, for Hillary Clinton. This is, you know, what that party does. It's what Republicans do. It's very important for us everyday people who are really chomping at the bit to, you know, break this stranglehold and get out from under the oppression of this economic elite. It's important for us to have the courage of our convictions, because going forward as we are, there is no future. There's no future for our young people who are massively in debt, who don't have jobs, and who are inheriting the incredible climate catastrophe, which gets bigger by the day as wildfires roll forward on the West Coast. 1 year of water left in
We're closing in
California.
on time. We'll be calling on you again, Doctor. We're going to stay very involved in this campaign, and you're going to get a lot of time with us.
I love that. Thank you
you.
so much. It's been great talking with you, Larry.